Media. As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn. Like the. All right, we are. All right.
I believe so.
All right, what's up, everybody?
Know.
Welcome to another episode of Obscurity Now, the show where we take a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media and we decide if they should be tossed into the black hole of obscurity or remembered for all of human history. My name is Steve, and I'm one of the hosts, and with me is a man who's always on a journey from the place where he lives to the castle. It's...
It is Yahel. How are you doing, Steve? I haven't been to the castle in a while now, but
that's probably, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, it's probably for the best at my age, you know.
Yes, you're a very young, late. We'll just keep it a mystery for all the listeners. But no, I'm doing great. I'm ready to discuss the brave little toaster. But before that, I always forget. I want to remind people to subscribe at the beginning of the show, because why not? I mean, we usually wait for the end, but hey, sure. What will it hurt, right?
Steve, I love the confidence you brought to that call to action. Yeah. Just amazing.
I'm like turning into Millhouse.
Subscribe. I mean,
yeah, well, why not? Hey, it's not going to hurt anyone. I'm turning into like Millhouse's dad over here.
You sound like the worst like drug dealer on his first day of dealing drugs.
Hey,
kids.
I've got some crack here. Well, why not? It'll make you feel good. I promise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else is? So you're going to a convention coming up? Is that right?
Yes, I will be at Retro World Expo. They did ask me if I wanted to do a panel again this year. I did a panel last time, but I declined because I just wasn't going to have time to prepare anything. And also, I just kind of wanted to not have any obligations. But I'll be walking around. I will be at the Bob from Retro RGB does have like a little table kind of reserved, and he is going to have like other YouTubers like myself kind of drop by for a little bit. So I will be at at the Retro RGB booth here and there. I'll probably be drunk, but you see me, please, welcome to say hi, get a picture, whatever you want. Buy me a drink. I won't say no.
No obligations. The Yahel Velasquez story. That's it's going to be the biography I'm going to write for you after you die, because you're going first.
I'd probably. Last time I was at Retro World Expo, none of the YouTubers, and it was like my first time doing a convention, and nobody was really drinking, even though there was like a bar right there.
What?
At the hotel lobby that we were all like staying in, which is connected to the convention center. So naturally, I found it was Corey from My Life in Gaming that I was like, I feel like this guy's probably like a drinker. And sorry, Corey, if you're listening. I was like, hey, Corey, I'm going to get a drink. You want me to grab something for you? He's like, oh, yeah, I'll do it. I think he ordered like a rum and Coke or something like that. Anyways, next thing you know, I ended up getting everybody drunk, and everybody was nice and hungover for their panels and stuff the next day. So if you had a bad experience at a panel at Retro World Expo, you can thank me.
I hear you ruined several people's like AA stint. They had to turn in their tokens after that.
Probably.
Way to go. I look forward to the day where we can both do a convention and get everyone just completely wasted on something. I don't know.
Yeah. On love for fellow man. That's what I'm gonna get.
Right. 100%. One giant man orgy. That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah. I mean, there'll be women there too, but anyways, I'll tell you what we won't be getting drunk off is the Brave Little Toaster, because it is an alcohol-free film.
Oh, but there's plenty, I think, of drug-induced imagery in it.
Fair.
Or as a popular term that gets thrown around a lot is nightmare fuel for, I guess, a lot of the younger people who watch this. And before we get too deep into the Brave Little Toaster, now, first off, it's not streaming anywhere. The sequels are streaming on Disney Plus. We'll get into the reason why shortly. But some Good Samaritans have uploaded it onto YouTube. So there's going to be tons of spoilers coming up. but you can go watch it right now so you know about what we're talking about the nightmare fuel, the highs, the lows, and all of that stuff. And
Yeah, and the version that was uploaded on YouTube, I mean, there's a few. The one that says PAL, so I guess it's from the PAL region, but it'll say it was uploaded 9 years ago. I'll throw the link in the chat. But yeah, the quality of the upload is really good. I'm surprised it's up, frankly, and that it's been up for 9 years.
yeah, I guess Hyperion Pictures, who are
Is
the
embarrassed,
no, no, embarrassed, man, you're
and they don't want to claim
crazy.
responsibility. Is that what's going on? You
They're
think?
just like Disney. We're not gonna let you stream this awesome movie. Whoops! Spoiler alert. We're not gonna let you have it, but you can have the crappy sequels, no problem. But so, are you ready to discuss the Brave Little
I
Toaster?
I am quite ready to discuss this film.
Oh, this is gonna be an interesting episode. Let's do it.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
All right, The Brave Little Toaster, in case you've never heard of it, it's an animated feature film. It premiered May 8th, 1987. It's 1 hour and 30 minutes, and it's rated G, even though some people might say it probably should be PG. So, I mean, I already know the answer to this, but what is your experience with The Brave Little Toaster?
I've never heard of it. I'm sorry, I've never watched it. I have heard of it, of course. But yeah, I never watched it. Didn't really know what it was about. And yeah, today was my first time watching it. What about you, Steve? It sounds like you have a long, deep, maybe emotional history with the Little Toaster because the few people I text a few people, let them know that I was, watching it because we were covering it, and they all were like, "Oh, I cried at this part. Oh, was traumatized by this." So it seems like people that watched it as a kid have very strong emotions and memories seared into their little child brains.
Well, much like the Chipmunk Adventure, which we covered, I don't know, maybe a year ago when we first started this podcast, this is one of those Honeycutt classic films that we recorded off of the Disney Channel and just wore that VHS tape out. Now, as far as like actually crying during the film, I don't think I ever did that. And
You're too alpha of a child. You're an Andrew Tate child.
there he is again. Yeah, I mean, I was already busy thinking about, which 6-year-old I was going to date. Of course, in this scenario, I'm 6 years old as well. Good thing I
Yeah,
cleared that
let's say
up.
if anybody wants to take that clip out of context, please, by all means.
I mean, I'm just happy that you're listening, but please don't. Anyway, no. I mean, I don't know. I just remember, I think when you watch stuff as, as a 6-year-old or whatever, you're just like, hey, this is cartoons. I don't really care what's going on. But, in some of the more surreal sort of dream sequences, I'm sure there were times that I was like, oh, boy, that's weird. But, I just sort of acknowledge and move on get to the end of the film and then probably just watch it again. So, yeah, I have a pretty strong history with The Brave Little Toaster. Here's the synopsis for those of you who don't know. It's a group of dated appliances embark on a journey to the city to find their master after being abandoned in a cabin in the woods. Like, already it sounds very tear-inducing. And
Sure.
this was directed by Jerry Reese. He basically started out it seems like in all of these sort of cartoons and animated movies that we watch, like the directors, they start out like doing storyboards, production storyboards, and Jerry is no different. He did production storyboards on the original Tron, so watch out. And then somehow he moved on to Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats. Do you remember that cartoon?
I sure do.
Yeah.
I watched it. I'm trying to remember if it was any good or not. I really can't remember.
I mean, I just.
But I vaguely recall Heathcliff being better than Garfield.
What? Oh, I remember just saying.
Think?
I remember saying, "Why isn't he Garfield?" He's like the less popular Garfield, but I think we need to add that one to the list. But yeah, that was stuff that he did production storyboards on, because I think his like storyboarding, aside from this movie, is more impressive than his directing credits. Basically, he directed The Brave Little Toaster and then went on to this live action film called The Marrying Man, starring recent murderer Alec Baldwin and former wife Kim Basinger. What's funny?
Nothing's funny.
And
Just an interesting descriptor.
yeah. But The Marrying Man, I was actually watching it last night at work. Well, it bombed, and it's not a terrible movie, but it looked pretty expensive. And there's an old adage in the biz, let me tell you, because I've been in Hollywood for a long time, I know how the biz works. If you're a director, you're supposed to already have your next project lined up. So if the current one bombs, you already have work lined up. I think that might be Jerry's sort of shortcoming here, because after this, he didn't really direct anything big. He directed the Rock and Roller Coaster sort of intro video. You ever go on that roller coaster at Disney, the Aerosmith one?
Is that like the Aerosmith? Yeah. I've been on.
I guess he directed after The Brave Little Toaster and The Marrying Man. He then did...
Yeah, that's the natural progression, Aerosmith themed roller coasters after you've done a children's cartoon. Yeah,
so that was basically what he did for a while there, was just Disney theme park related little videos and whatnot, which is unfortunate because I think he's pretty decent, but whatever. And then the last thing that he, or at least feature that he directed, was this, it looks like an indie film called Susie's Hope, which is about some sort of, I don't know, pit bull that gets rescued or whatever. Sounds kind of sad. But anyway, moving on, we got the writers here. Thomas M. Dish, who was called by Newsweek magazine the most formidably gifted, unfamous American writer. This movie...
What a write-up.
I know,
what a
right?
man.
This movie is based...
is that an insult or a compliment?
It's a backhanded compliment, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie is based on his novella. Has anybody read it? Let us know. And
I guess not. If not, he'd be more famous, right?
Right, exactly. But then I guess he gets credit for the 2 Brave Little Toaster sequels. So this is a trilogy, everyone. Brave Little Toaster was followed by Brave Little Toaster to the Rescue and Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. That's machete.
And then there's another one where I guess they felt they needed to, from what I was reading, I don't know, maybe make it a little bit more realistic. And he's called the Pussy Little Toaster.
What?
And he's just...
that's not real.
Yeah, that's very real. And it is only available in adult bookstores, from what I understand.
Shouldn't it be the Brave Little Pussy? I mean...
No, because you got to keep the toaster. Anyways, I don't want to explain
because of the marketing?
The other movie biz industry to you right now.
Well, I mean, I hear it's pretty strong in Tampa, or always has been. But anyway, yeah, so basically all he's known for is Brave Little Toaster related stuff. There's a weird, but there's also a weird short film or something on IMDb. And the aforementioned director, Jerry Reese, is also credited as working on the screenplay here for Brave Little Toaster. And he's also helped write Alvin and the Chipmunks. Make sure you... Oh, wait, I already mentioned them. Never mind. And then Joe Ranft, who I don't mean to get into your area of the cast here.
Oh, no, it's fine.
This guy, he took off after this movie. He worked on The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Toy Story, The Rescuers Down Under, as a writer. And he is also the voice of the evil clown, who we're going to see later once we get into the plot here. And lastly, the production companies. This was produced by Hyperion Pictures and the Kushner Lock Company. And then uncredited is the Walt Disney Corporation. And we're going to get into the story of that later on as well. Yahel, what nobodies are in the Brave Little Toaster?
Well, it's a pretty sizable cast, so I'm only going to go through the better-known ones. First up, I guess this would be the top or most well-known actor at the time then. John Lovitz, he's still active.
Woo.
I'm a big John Lovitz fan. I don't know if you are.
Oh, definitely. The critic, man.
Yeah. I mean, this movie has like a really talented cast for the most part. John Lovitz, he's been in a bunch of stuff, still has stuff coming out. I don't think we need to go over what he's been in.
Right.
We've got Timothy Stack, who we recently covered one of his projects, Son of the Beach.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's written a bunch of stuff, acted a bunch of stuff. Really funny guy. Then we've got Phil Hartman, the late Phil Hartman, who was murdered. Not by Alec Baldwin, though, by his wife.
Thanks
Just
for
to be
keeping
clear.
the murder joke going.
Yeah. I'm sure their families would really appreciate their deaths being the
absolutely.
butt of a joke on a little podcast. But
Hey, I was
hey, their
devastated.
deaths weren't in vain.
I was devastated when Phil Hartman died.
Actually, I was too, man. I'm a
I love
huge
Phil
Phil
Hartman.
Hartman fan. Yeah. He's amazing. Anyways, so he is no longer acting, as you can imagine.
Oh, you bastard.
He has no
He's
projects coming out.
He's acting in our hearts and minds.
Yeah. Anyways, but he's SNL legend. He's in a bunch of movies. Great. He's got tons of classic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then, oh, by the way, so John Lovitz, I should mention, he did the voice of the radio. Timothy Stack is the voice of the lamp. Phil Hartman is the voice of the air conditioner. Then we've got a bunch of people who I'm not really familiar with. Mindy Sterling, she did a bunch of stuff. She's the voice of the mom. She was like in Austin Powers and a bunch of other things. And I mean, those were really only the people that I really recognize. I don't know if there was anybody else that you saw that you think is worth mentioning.
I mean, I just want to say this guy's name. I mean, we have to at least cover the main Toaster group, and you did most of them. You left out Timothy E. Day as Blanky. I mean, I'm not familiar what else he's done, but the voice of the Vacuum, Kirby.
Yeah,
his name is
amazing name.
Thurl Ravenscroft. I mean, I just wanted to say that.
I think he's starting his own Harry Potter house in the reboot. That name.
He's the owner of the castle, isn't he?
That might be. For people that don't know, the castle is a nightclub in Ybor City
Yahel's
/
hunting
Tampa.
ground. Yeah.
It is not my hunting ground, Steve. It is a place I do enjoy going, though. But yeah, it looks like a castle, and they tend to play industrial music, and it attracts a lot of goth. Nice.
This show is brought to you by the Ybor City Castle. Yeah. All right. So the music here, which I think is the score is pretty great. It's done by David Newman. I guess no relation to Randy Newman. He has also worked on Serenity, Daddy Daycare, like tons of stuff. And the actual songs in the movie, because this is, I guess, technically a musical. There's only like 4 songs. It's not like Mary Poppins or anything like that. Is done by Van Dyke Parks, who did work on Heathers and The Departed. That's an odd leap to go from the Brave Little Toaster to The Departed.
Sure is.
And there's a lot of sort of history with just like the production of the Brave Little Toaster here. Do you know who John Lasseter is by any chance?
The name sounds familiar, but hit me with the deets, Steve.
He was like the head of Pixar before he was recently sort of Me Too.
Was he murdered?
He was Me Too'd out of there.
Maybe he had a run-in with one of the Baldwins.
Oh man, no.
And, this isn't even topical. Like that, and the Baldwin thing happened so long ago.
Well, people should still talk about it because it looks like he's gonna skate, or I don't know. But yeah, whatever. That's a different podcast. But anyway, John Lasseter, yeah, he was the head of Pixar. Unfortunately, he was sort of ousted under false pretenses, and now he's the head of like Skydance or something like that. So he's doing fine. But this was the first movie that he pitched to Disney to be a CGI, movie, basically. So he pitched it to this guy at Disney, and then the guy was like, why would he like asked how much it was going to be, and he was like, oh, 18 million, basically the same price of a 2D animation. And the guy was like, why would we make something with computers unless it was going to save us money? And so that was the end of the meeting, and then he was immediately fired after that.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's so crazy.
By the way, we do have Seabass, the great here, longtime subscriber of my YouTube channel. Thanks for checking it out, man. But checking out the podcast, he said, "I'm here. I have this soundtrack on cassette and CD."
Oh, now that's a fan. Ooh, I like this guy. That's kick-ass, Seabass. Kick-ass.
Oh no.
Well, I think you and I are gonna have to team up here, Seabass, because I think I see the writing on the wall here. But moving on. So yeah, he was fired, and then basically the Brave Little Toaster got kicked down to Hyperion Pictures, which had been created by former Disney employees. And it also the film itself, it made history as the first animated film ever exhibited at the Sundance Film Festival. Yeah, and as we said, there's it's not streaming anywhere, and that's just because there's distribution problems between Disney and Hyperion. And after it premiered at the film festival and was ready to go, they had this art house production company pick it up so it can actually get a theatrical release. But good old family-friendly Disney didn't want any competition, so they're like, oh, like they had the TV distribution rights, so they're like, we're just gonna go ahead and premiere it on the Disney Channel. So
yeah, they basically premiered it first to like undercut the theatrical release.
Yep. So they screwed them out of a theatrical release.
I can't believe Disney would do that.
They're so family friendly. They're so inclusive and everything. Like, how could a corporation undercut someone? I've never heard of that ever happening in history. So yeah, that's basically the highlights of. I guess another sort of fun fact here is that originally, yeah, they wanted to do have a budget of 18 million, and after it got kicked down to Hyperion, it was like half that. And they were going to send it to be animated overseas, but everyone was so passionate about the project that they basically took pay cuts so they could do the film, more or less.
Well, I mean, but there are a lot of foreign animators in this in the credits. I saw.
I think
they definitely shipped. Some of it was definitely done overseas, which I mean that's pretty typical, even if you do have if you had a big budget.
Right,
so.
right. I think it was more of like, the core creative cast and like probably the voice actors too. Yeah. So you ready to ready to jump into the plot here?
Sure. I do want to point out one thing. So Seabass mentioned, I know this is getting a little bit ahead, but by the way, I guess this was translated to Spanish, but he mentioned, besides that, he said that the AC unit committed suicide in the beginning and that traumatized him for a good while. Now, I guess we can talk about that scene when we get to it, but I didn't see it as him committing suicide, but maybe I misinterpreted it.
I didn't get that either, but yeah, we're going to get there pretty quick because it's
But the vacuum cleaner did try to commit suicide.
That could be argued, sure. Yeah, we're gonna unpack all of these very traumatizing moments right now. All right, so the film opens with a slow zoom in on sort of it already looks kind of like a sad looking cabin just surrounded by these dark woods, and they're running the credits, and now we are in the house, and we zoom in on the toaster and the vacuum, and they haven't sprung to life yet. They just look like regular toasters and vacuums and radios. And then we see a picture of a young boy who is later revealed to be the master. Suddenly, the radio goes off, and he gives a news report. And then there's another voice that says he's trying to get some sleep. Then a light shines on the radio. Then the desk lamp walks toward the radio. Oh my gosh, my dreams are coming to life. And the radio leaps back. So basically they're just showing you that, all these characters, these that are normally regular appliances, are actually like sentient beings in this world. Sounds very similar. Now, you've actually seen Toy Story, right?
Yeah, this felt very similar to Toy Story. And I know that a lot of the people that worked on this kind of went on to start, or at least were there at the genesis of Toy Story, Pixar.
Especially one John Lasseter. So radio then bounces on the bed. He wakes up the blanket. Then we see the AC unit spring to life. He coughs out up dust, and then along comes Kirby to vacuum it up. And then we see the toaster, and it looks like he's ready to shoot up some toasts, but his like switch goes up, and he sees that there's no toast in there, and he looks a little distraught and sad. Radio continues to chase the lamp, who's known as Lampy, as Toaster laughs at them. And then the Blanky, he sort of glides down the stairs and ends up covering up the radio and Blanky. And then along comes the vacuum, and he accidentally sucks up the blanket, and they're all sort of stuck together in this orgy of appliances, basically. I like to use the word orgy as much as I can whenever I'm
I've noticed,
podcasting.
Steve, this is the second time now you've used orgy while talking about this children's movie. So I don't know.
You're the one
fans,
who got
audience, take that as you will.
You got an entire convention, a gaming convention, drunk. Like, who's the deviant here?
Just the content creators. Well, Steve, they were all of legal drinking age.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you cleared that up. So, what do you think about the opening? What were your initial thoughts so far, since you're a guy who's never watched this before?
It was fine, I guess. I hate the voice of the toaster.
What?
I don't know. I just found it grating and annoying. But again, I don't have nostalgia for it. I'm obviously not the target audience. It was okay. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think, Steve? It seems like it really titillated your senses.
Well, it's hard. I have a bias, obviously, since I grew up with the film. But watching it again, it was totally nostalgic for me. I loved, just as a guy who watches a lot of movies and critiques them all, I loved how they all sort of sprang to life and did what they would normally do, back when the master was there. There's sort of if you want to compare it to other things, it's like zombies and Dawn of the Dead, how they all go to the mall, even though they're all dead, just doing the same thing over. Yeah, terrible comparison, but it works. It's apt. Okay. So moving on. So they basically untangle themselves from Blanky, and then the toaster basically he says, "Good morning, everyone," and Radio and Lamp asks what they're gonna do today, and Kirby, who I guess is supposed to represent he's the realist of the group. You could also sort of judge him as a pessimist properly. He says, "We're gonna be doing chores just like every day." And then he says it's work. It's not supposed to be fun because the lamp or the blanket, I can't remember. It's like work. Oh, it's the blanket. He goes, "Work. I don't want to do work. It's not fun." And then he says it's not supposed to be fun. And but then Radio motivates the crew with Little Richard's Tutti Frutti. What did you think when that song was being played? How did you feel?
I like Little Richard, and I think Tutti Frutti is a fun song.
Oh, I
hated it.
What?
Hated it here.
You hated it
hated
here?
It.
Why?
Because I was afraid. I was afraid. Again, I knew nothing about this movie really going into it, and I was afraid that it was going to have a bunch of songs in it. And even as a kid, I sound like a real annoying shit kid, but even as a kid, I didn't like, generally speaking, songs in my movies, kid movies.
I agree with you. I think we've established that you and I pretty much hate musicals for the most part.
Yeah. Well, I know I like musicals, but real ones like Miss Saigon or Les Mis. Excuse me?
I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm mistaken here then. All right, so
Phantom of the Opera? Are you kidding? Every song on Phantom of the Opera is, as the kids would say, a banger.
I don't really care for musicals, especially Broadway ones, usually because the music sucks. All right, I shouldn't say it sucks. Wow. I don't normally care for it. I like a few things here and there. I like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I like Evil Dead, the musical. That's stuff that more appeals to me than and I've even been in a musical and I still don't really like them.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's great, Steve. I hope you like the family that you're currently in, or are you lying to them too? Just playing a part, I guess, right? Whatever gets you on the
Hey,
world stage,
I'm an
Steve.
actor, you bastard. I mean, or I used to be. I would just do whatever the paycheck said I had to do, basically.
Wow. Wow.
Okay,
All
so
right.
all right, so
Well,
let's get this straight here. All right, you're a guy who likes musicals, but as a
yeah.
kid, you didn't like music in your cartoons. Clear that up for
Because
me.
because the songs tend to be like pretty cringy and like kind of cheesy, and
True,
there's
true.
always like not always, but there's usually like some dumb little dance. And just as a kid, I just thought it was like I don't know.
But that's a
I like
musical,
I
man. That's a musical.
No, but like this is a cartoon. Like I'm not trying to watch a musical, and I didn't like get into like musicals until later as an adult, anyways, or at
Okay,
least like
okay.
in my teens.
Hmm.
So as a kid, I was just like, oh, these musical numbers are like getting in the way of the story. They're getting in the way of the cartoon.
See, that's how I felt then, and I feel that way pretty much now. So when I watch a musical and it's nothing but singing, like here, quick sidetrack here. So remember when Chicago came out, the movie?
The one with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, like all right. So me and some other dudes, I think we thought it was gonna be like The Untouchables. We thought so. Me and some other regular straight white dudes. I mean, not that you can't like musicals and be straight or whatever. We went to Chicago expecting The Untouchables, and then we got Chicago, which is nothing but singing. They do
Yeah,
nothing but singing in that.
yeah.
We were done. We were just like, why did we sit through that?
It was a pretty fun adaptation, I thought.
I
But
mean, that's like I really hate like Hollywood just won't give up on the musical either. It's like they still make them, and I still hate them. But anyway,
Steve,
so
Steve, wait, hold on. While we're on this tangent, have you ever watched the Phantom of the Opera film with Gerard Butler in it?
no, no, I haven't.
Okay, so Phantom of the Opera is one of my favorite musicals, and but you should watch the Gerard Butler one because it's fucking unintentionally hilarious. Because Gerard Butler clearly can't sing, but it's him singing, and I remember like watching like a something on like Entertainment Tonight, like where he was like going to like a vocal coach or whatever. So what he does is he screams a lot of the lyrics, especially if it's like a higher note. He just kind of like yells it. It's
Hmm.
amazing. So there's definitely some entertainment value to be gleaned from the not so smooth or sultry vocals of one Gerard Butler.
All right. I will take you up on that someday. But for now, just so I have everything straight in my head about you and music in film and TV or whatever, is that all right? So as a kid, you hated music in your cartoons and your animated
For the
movies.
most part, yeah.
But as an adult, you don't mind it. You don't mind musicals and or feature film adaptations of musicals. Is that what I'm getting?
Right, but I still don't want like a random song in the middle of my regular film, whether it's an animated movie or a live action film.
All right.
That's not what I'm here for, Daddy.
And to clear it up for myself, if if the music sort of skews more towards what I like, I don't mind it. But if the entire movie is all singing like Chicago and that Repo, the genetic opera, did you ever see that one? Did you ever?
No. Well, I saw a little bit of it, but
Yeah,
not much.
that one also was nothing but singing. It's like I can't do it. I can't do it. So all right, back to the brave little toast. All right,
Yeah, nobody cares about this. Let's move on.
I loved as a kid hearing again like what's essentially a rock song in an animated movie because much like we said back with Alvin and the Chipmunks, basically what you get in these animated movies are Disney songs, which are usually pretty cheesy and grating. But to hear an actual song that you would hear like on the radio being played in an animated movie, like I loved it. I loved it. But you hated it. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
did not like it today, and like I said, I am a fan of oh my God, I just forgot his name, but
Little
you know
Richard.
the
Little Richard.
thank you, Little Richard.
Yeah.
And I like Tutti Frutti. I think it's fucking pretty badass, man.
No,
Like
that's
the
a
piano
great
part.
song. Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Get the fuck out of here. Like it's pretty badass. But
but you don't like it in the Brave Little Toaster.
No,
Learning a
no.
lot about you on this episode.
Are you?
Uh,
Are you?
I think we're learning a lot about each other.
I think we are. I think we are. I think there's a rift forming.
All right. This just in. Podcast host wanted for Obscurity Now. All right. So they clean the cabin happily until Blanket suddenly stops and stares off into the distance. And they all see that he's staring. And they're like, what's going on, Blanket? And he goes, a car. Then they all pile up on top of each other so they can reach the attic so they can get a nice high view of the car that's approaching. Blanket looks out and he does see that a car is coming, and they're all asking if it's the master, the master. And then we get one of many sort of hallucinations or fever dreams, if you want to call that. The Blanket hallucinates that the little boy from the picture we saw earlier is approaching him, and he hallucinates that they're about to like embrace, and right when they do, bam, they cut to the car, and it turns out it was all just a big dream, and it wasn't the master. Blanket cries. What did you think of our first of many sort of nightmare-fueled dreams? What did you think of that?
I was very confused as to why he was hallucinating, because I guess that's what it is, like, or having a daydream or something. Like, it's very weird that it happens. It's used so often. I don't know, but this is meant for little kids, so I guess they wouldn't care. But whatever. My main concern at this point, or the thing I found like befuddling, is that they call their owner of the appliances, this guy that's going to college, their master.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all like, which kind of like, okay, that implies that they're all slaves, which I guess they are.
Oh, here we go.
Because earlier they're complaining about their work. So I don't know if they were like, isn't that kind of like a weird choice of word though? Like, wouldn't owner have been like better? Or, I mean, I know that that's not that much different from master, I guess, but.
Right. I mean, I never really thought of it.
Just use his name.
Until you just brought it up.
It's very weird. This is like a very pro-servitude, pro-slavery movie because they love their master. They love their master.
I mean, much like robots, I mean, they're built to serve, so they would want to serve him, like in this world.
Yeah, but they're sentient and have free will also.
But they want to. They want to serve him.
So that makes it okay to own them, Steve?
In this world, apparently. I see where you're getting there.
It's really weird. I mean, I again, this is meant for like kids, right? So little kids wouldn't think about this, but I just think master was like a weird,
right? I mean, choice
of a word.
To me, this is more of a family film. I mean, obviously they push the envelope a little bit with a lot of the imagery. In fact, that's why that one art house distributor was going to pick up the Brave Little Toaster. They were going to show it at like evening and midnight showings because they felt it would work better for like older kids and like a college crowd. I mean, I could see dudes getting really high and going to see this.
I mean, and by the way, and you're the one here that's a father, right? So maybe you can tell me if it's not really the case. But kids from what I remember, as far as I know, like they tend to like pick up little things in movies and just repeat them, or whatever. So like, I don't know, I could see like some kid watching this and being like, oh, I want a master, or whatever, like not meaning it like in any kind of weird way. Cause it's just an innocent child. Mm-hmm. But that's why I think it's just like a weird word that they chose, right, where they could have been like, our friend, like call him their friend or anything, or just use his name instead of master. Like it was just kind of weird.
I gotcha. I can see that. So moving on, Toaster says, let's get back to work. Then the Blanket continues to cry, cries over the picture of the master, whose name is Rob. We can call him Rob if it makes you feel better. Kirby,
I'm fine.
You seem highly offended. You seem very angry.
I'm not offended at all. No, I'm not offended at all. And I don't think it's like offensive either. I just think it's like
right. It's
kind of a weird choice.
So Kirby tries to grab or suck the picture away, and the frame breaks, and then it looks like the wind is starting to blow the picture away, but in actuality, it's the air conditioner who laughs sarcastically. And in case you fell asleep during Yahel's reading of the cast, this is actually Phil Hartman doing a Jack Nicholson impression, and man, is it not spot on?
It is spot on. And if I remember correctly, Phil Hartman did a Jack Nicholson impression a few times on
Oh,
SNL.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, he's very good, known for that.
Yeah, and then I don't know. The air conditioner here could also be seen as maybe not. He's not a realist. He's almost more of like a. He seems like a conspiracy theorist, which isn't like something that anyone is
It's weird that
bored.
he started talking about QAnon. I did think like that was weird.
And the reptilians. Yeah, yeah. But so
Yeah.
basically,
Everyone in government's a clone, Steve.
don't I know it, brother? Like, let's start up a new podcast all about it. But basically, the AC, and he's very cold and sarcastic. Get it? Because he's an air conditioner.
Right.
He's like, you guys gotta give it up. That kid's not coming back. And then I don't know. Kirby says something to him, and then this is a fun line, and it could also be misconstrued if you want. He's like, "What are you gonna do, Kirby? Suck me to death?" And,
Yeah, I thought that did get a chuckle out of me.
and then the AC tells the crew that they've been dumped. Just give it up. The master's not coming back. And then they tell him that he's jealous because the master never played with him. And this is when he sort of goes on a tirade / monologue. He's like, I was made to be in the wall. Like, I know he's never going to play with me, blah, blah, blah. And then he starts, like,
Yeah.
I think basically the idea here is, in all respect to Seabass, like, he freaks out and, like, he literally...
He has like a nervous breakdown or something, like a mental
blows a
break.
fuse, literally, which causes him to short circuit, and it also blows a fuse in the house. But yeah, I remember even as a kid, like watching that scene, it is a little unsettling, but it's supposed to be. Like, I mean, movies are supposed to make you feel. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. What did you think of the interaction with the AC here?
I mean, again, got a chuckle out of the "What are you gonna do? Suck me to death" line. Like, and I had seen that Phil was the voice, so I was like, "Oh man, I bet that was an ad lib
Yeah,
by Hartman," because it sounds like the kind of
same
ad-lib
with
he would do.
when he starts going on. It's like, you think I don't see what's going on here? This is a conspiracy. You're all against me because you can move around and I can't. I'm like, gosh, that's so brilliant. Like,
Yeah. Like you can definitely see Phil if you ever watched him on SNL, you could definitely see him like in some kind of like AC like costume or whatever, like saying this stuff, right?
definitely.
In fact, this would have made like a great skit on SNL.
For
this
sure.
fight.
I mean, well, there's a lot of great sort of puns and metaphors, mostly puns throughout the whole movie that are just sort of they're delivered very deadpan. That I know as a kid I didn't get that I was getting now for sure.
I wish there would have been more Phil Hartman in this movie.
I agree.
But,
he only comes back one other time. But I was going to say it's pretty interesting that, long after this, Phil Hartman ended up being on a news radio. So basically, I feel like, I mean, who do you pick if both guys show up? Who do you pick to be your radio? And I mean, they went with John Lovitz. But again, to touch on the sad fact of Phil Hartman's passing, after he died, they replaced him with John Lovitz, who was the voice of the radio. Did you ever watch News Radio?
Interesting. Oh yeah, I love News Radio.
Yeah, great show.
Great show.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Seabass here, he wrote, and I was actually going to mention this. I'm glad he brought it up. That the AC says it's not my fault that the kid couldn't reach my knob when they're talking about like, oh, he never wanted to play with you, and then he finally like blows up like or whatever.
Yeah. So it seems like he's accepted his lot in life, but still isn't very happy.
Definitely has
about
some
it.
mentally. He's mentally unwell. This air conditioner.
Right. So all right. So everyone freaks out until okay. So what happens here? All right. All right. So the AC freaks out. They hear another car, and then they all sort of revert to their regular appliance self. I think later on they call that freezing. They're like, everybody freeze. Then they hear the sound of someone hammering down, and they peek out and they see someone putting up a for sale sign on the house. Everyone freaks out until the toaster says they are going to find the master in the city. And of course, in classic sort of hero's journey kind of fashion, everyone is reluctant at first, but then they all eventually join in, including Kirby. And then they have to figure out how they're going to travel since, these are all appliances and they need power. And they try a few things in a hilarious montage that doesn't really work. And then they eventually decide they get a car battery. The toaster hooks up an outlet to it, and then they tie the car battery to a desk chair, and Kirby the vacuum pulls them. Then they hit the road, and we're off to the races.
One thing, you cannot charge a car battery by plugging it into a wall, just FYI for those out there. But also, did you notice that when the little toaster makes his speech to like rally the troops, he actually gets on a literal soap box?
Oh no, I missed that.
It's like a box like of soap.
That's great. That's awesome. So as they head out to the very lush looking forest, I don't know, I just noted here that, I thought the animation was very beautiful, as well as the score. What did you think at this point?
Yeah, the animation all through, it's really high quality animation, especially for 1987. There's a lot of scenes where they took the time to, when the camera's panning, in the 80s in particular, you wouldn't see a lot of like parallax scrolling. It would just be like everything's moving together basically.
Yeah.
In real life, obviously, like your objects that are closer to the camera move faster than the ones further back in the background. So yeah, they have some like nice stuff like that. There's a few like shots where the camera, quote unquote, the camera is like going around the characters. So they give it some 3D space. So yeah, there's some really nice animation.
What did you think of the score so far?
Forgettable.
Oh,
it's okay.
You bastard.
It's fine.
We're done.
I feel like it could have been like in any like 80s movie. I don't know. I just
all right,
in
maybe
any 80s cartoon, I didn't think it was anything special. It wasn't bad. Just nothing that made me go, "Oh, this I'll remember this over the score in The Land Before Time" or something.
All right. I guess
yeah, that's what I fucking
all we
thought,
can say
Steve.
about that. All right, so that takes us, speaking of music, into our first musical number, "The City of Light." What was your thoughts on this song?
Why don't you? I didn't like any of the songs. So well, that's not true. That's not true. I appreciated the B movie song later on.
Thank you.
I still could have done without it, but at least like it was something unique and different.
Let's already say, all right, the songs are there, so I just want to know what you think about them. But
I didn't like this Light song. I didn't like it.
Right. I thought this one was the most basic of them all, but typical of hey, we're starting off on our journey. Let's, rah rah, blah. I didn't hate it, but I feel like the better songs are stacked towards the end. So they stop and end up in some gray, dead wood looking area, and they argue a little bit about where to go and what to do, and then they realize that they need to get some sleep, and they need some and the blanket.
Why do these appliances need sleep?
Man, you gotta go with it, bro. It's a cartoon.
Okay,
come on, work with me here. So if you have a problem with them sleeping, how about the part where they go into the water and like no one dies?
What about so I was very confused as to why they needed a car battery hooked up to a chair to move, because they all move all the time without electricity.
I guess it's just one of the tasks that they have to overcome, to learn. I don't know.
Like it would have been fine if like they didn't show us all the time that they can move just fine without power.
Well, I think, all right, this is how you can sort of justify it. It's like they can unplug themselves and move around for a bit, but eventually they have to plug back in.
No, because that never happens.
But it's off camera.
Okay, so you're that's a pretty big assumption you're making, Steven.
You just have to, cast your own.
Like Steve, literally, when the which is the next scene that's coming up, when they like run out, the battery is dead, so they're trying to recharge it with like lightning or whatever. They're all jumping around, like trying to get blankets. So they're moving without this, like while they're like, oh, it's dead. I don't know. I know it's a kids movie and whatever,
right.
But the thing is, like, they're so blatantly not following that rule that Dave set up.
Right, we're here to pick apart all this stuff, so it's perfectly fine. I'm just trying to
I think any child that's like at least 8 years old would have been like, hey, that doesn't make sense.
I never cared. I never cared.
Well, you said you were 6.
I mean, I'm sure I watched it when I was 8 also. I mean, I watched this up until I was 37.
But at 8,
no,
maybe
that's
you already
not
had it.
true.
Anyways, whatever.
I mean, when we were in the band together, I probably was not watching it. But yeah, I mean,
Probably.
like
This man can't even confirm for sure he wasn't watching it.
tried
That's how
to-
pro My Brave Little Toaster or the Brave Little Toaster you are, Steven.
maybe just the vacuum needs it. I don't know. Like it's
But
just
the vacuum moves without it all the time too.
I mean, the transformer, it's their Energon cube. Just like
The vacuum is unplugged when he tries to kill himself.
right. I mean, on IMDb, they say that the plugs are kind of a goof. That sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they extend. I don't know. I think you're gonna have to suspend your disbelief with this one.
I assume I can go with the plugs are retractable. I can go with
right.
that.
I
That
go
was the
with
thing
that.
that they used. All right. Anyway,
But
let's
as
move
far
on.
as
Like,
this
we
power
don't-
source is concerned, you can't look through it.
I listen. I think you and I have had a longer discussion about this than the writers.
All
did,
right,
so
you're
let's
probably
move
right.
on.
Okay, so all right, so they're all sort of getting their own little space, and at this point, like at least if you want to look at the Toaster crew as like a family, their family dynamic is they all kind of annoy each other. They've just sort of been stuck together in that house for so long. And they all kind of, I mean, that not hate, but they're all highly annoyed by one another. So they're all getting their own little space. And this is important, I would say, for their arc. They're all getting their own space, and they're like, you don't bother me, you don't bother. But the blanket, he's used to snuggling with someone, at least the master. So he's trying to go cozy up to all the different appliances. And basically everyone, including the brave little Toaster, tells him to take a hike. And,
So basically, the blanket is a horny little blanket,
later,
right? And it doesn't care who it gets in bed with, right? Doesn't care their
Wow.
appliance type.
You are the ultimate.
It's a pansexual blanket.
Well, we never know if it's a man or a woman, so it goes
It's
all ways.
it's a non-binary pansexual
Yeah.
blanket.
There you go,
Very
diversity
inclusive.
back in
Yeah,
1987.
if you think about it, it kind of is though, right?
yeah, for sure.
It's kind of funny.
So it's the next day. We're outside in a wooded area.
Steve, this blanket.
Oh,
What does he still have this blanket? The master.
well, I thought.
He's an adult that masturbates. What's he?
Well, no, he left there when he was a little boy and never went back.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So pre-puberty.
right.
Okay.
Are you trying to
And sometimes the blanket looks a little stiff.
presuppose
Sometimes the blanket
the
just looks a
blanket
little
is
stiff.
a cum rag? That's what you're saying. Oh my
Whoa,
That's
Steve,
what you're saying.
I'm just trying to establish the timeline, the sequence of events.
Oh
Steve,
man, I'm definitely gonna have to hit the explicit button for this one. Jesus. All right.
I didn't say
You
C-rag.
were-
You did.
you
All
were
I did was say
insinuating.
that. I was just asking questions, Steve.
Oh,
I'm just
man.
here to get to the bottom of the truth.
So
The cold, hard truth.
So this and our Mother's Day Tick episode are gonna get they're gonna be 18-year-olds or up, or mature audience videos on YouTube apparently, but whatever. So Jesus. All right, so they're in this like prickly, again, deadwood looking foresty area. The blanket hears some animal noises, then they find this-
Blanket's used to being in prickly situations, from what I understand. So,
Yeah, I'm dealing with a real prick right now. So yeah, they find this beautiful pond, this sort of lush opening or whatever, and like there's wacky frogs and beavers. All the animals chase after a worm. It's a fun little segment, though. At first, I didn't. Hold on, we're gonna get there. Though I didn't really see the point until I was thinking to myself, I'm like, do you feel like maybe they're parroting like Disney movies with this like sort of scene?
I think you're reading too much into it. I think they were trying to hit the. No, seriously, Steve, because I feel like there's a little bit of filler in this movie. I feel like there's about an hour's worth of story.
It does
And then
move
there's Phil.
fast, and the musical numbers help sort of pad the story. I'll admit that, but
Right. I think if you take out the musical numbers and a couple of the filler scenes like this one, I think you get down to about an hour.
all right, I'm gonna fight you on this one. There is a reason here. All right, aside from possibly parodying Disney stuff, because remember, Hyperion was all made of like former Disney employees.
Right.
There's also a character moment here for the brave little toaster, where some squirrels are like sort of they're looking at their reflection in his silver epidermis or exterior, whatever you want to call it, and he's like telling them to like buzz off, and he ends up running away from them in sort of like this shaded kind of a darker area, and there's a lone flower there who sees its reflection and thinks it's another flower and starts trying to hug the toaster, and he's like buzz off like this isn't another flower, and he like runs away from it, and then he looks back and sees that the flower I guess has started to wilt because it's alone, and so basically this gives the brave little toaster like the motivation to be like, hey, maybe I should sort of give a little bit more care to my
To the
family
blanket.
member. Yeah, to not only the blanket but like all of them. But he starts with the blanket because that's the one who's most in need of contact.
Well, it's the
basically.
one that's most in use to being in contact with warmth. Whether the warmth be solid, whether it be liquid.
I wonder if it's possible to get kicked off of TikTok. You know what? I'm gonna find out.
It is. It is. It is. Yeah, I mean, it also, I would say that scene with the flower teaches kids that incorrectly that if a flower is alone, it'll wilt and die out of loneliness. Not true.
I'll have to check my science book, but I'll take your word.
Rather, I mean, it probably just needed some water, but the toaster is just like, oh, it must be me. How vain of the brave little toaster to think, oh, it's because I didn't acknowledge the flower that it died.
I mean, no, it wasn't. But that wasn't the lesson. It was because the flower was alone. That's why, or it ended up dying alone. Basically, that flower died alone, and so the toaster was like, "Oh, geez, maybe I should be a little bit nicer to my. Otherwise, maybe they'll leave me, and I'll end up dying alone."
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I'm being picky, but yeah, you're.
Alrighty. So let's see. They were all annoyed at first with each other. Oh yeah, I already said that stuff. So Kirby says his battery is running low. They're back on the road again. He says his battery's running low and they need to recharge. Again, they're still in a very dark wooded area. It's nighttime and they're trying to settle down again. There's sort of a funny sight gag where the lamp, he's like, hey, maybe we can stay over here. And he illuminates the inside of this tree, and it's like this really creepy looking, monstrous looking tree. And they're all like,
Like one of the Mortal Kombat 2, the trees in the background that have like the faces. No, I mean,
what a
that's
reference.
pretty accurate,
That's
right?
a good reference.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm not making fun of it. Like, I thought the tree was cool.
Yeah. I just like the reference. That's all. So they say they need shelter, and in the end, they look over and see that the blanket has made himself into a tent. And this is the first of
Stiff tent.
it's a pop tent, yeah, if you will.
Well, I wonder how the blanket was able to remain so stiff. I wonder if the master had provided some lubrication to help with the stiff. I don't know. Steve.
Oh my God! Wow. So yeah, this is
maybe to quote the excuse you used earlier. Maybe it had happened off camera.
Maybe it did.
Away from his mother's prying eyes.
You had a very sad childhood, didn't you?
Because my mother didn't watch. Anyway. By the way, we have Detroit Retro Gamer here. Said such a terrifying movie. Yeah, we're just talking about how the master possibly used his childhood blanket for other means as he aged later.
A rag of types, and this is Yahel's. That's his hypothesis, not mine. Just so
I'm just
everyone's
posing some questions, man. I'm just asking some questions.
if you don't like the truth, then that's your fault.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So they're inside. They're inside the blanket. Who's a tent? Who's a tent at this point? Oh, and this is, as
Right.
I was trying to say, this is one of the many sort of self-sacrifices that a lot of the appliances make, and like it's a good little lesson. It shows, sometimes you have to take one for the team, if you will, like for your friends and for your family. And almost everybody
Blanket knows
does.
all about that.
Who does?
The blanket knows all about taking one for the team.
Jesus. All right.
Sometimes several in a day. Just depends on.
All right, we got to get past this thing here. All right, so
Yeah.
they're all like sort of settling down, and the lamp like notices that the toaster has started being really nice to the blanket, and he's asking him why. He tells him it's like it's like a good feeling that he has, and the lamp like doesn't really understand. So he describes it as a glow, and then the lamp starts to get the idea. He says, like when he's thinking about the master, and he describes this story about how the first time his bulb burnt out, he thought he was going to get thrown away, but then the master just puts a new bulb in there, and he gets to continue helping out the master. And this shows that number one, that the master is one of those guys who's good at fixing stuff, and it also shows that the appliances are deathly afraid of becoming useless and being thrown away, which is a constant theme like throughout the film. And then we get another fever dream, if you will. It's just a regular dream here, I'd say. And the master makes a face in the toaster, and the toast pops up. He's basically making himself a PBJ, and then out of nowhere, like this black, like evil-looking smoke shows up, and then he grabs the master, and he's starting to pull him away, and they're like calling for each other, and I guess this shows the toaster's fear of or I guess all their fear of losing the master, I guess forever, and then out of nowhere, an evil clown with a water hose shows up. And he tells the toaster to run, and so the toaster then does run. The clown shoots the water, and the water turns into forks, which is just it's a Salvador Dali level of like surreality.
It is.
And I mean, as an adult at this point, I mean, I love it. At the time, as a kid, I'm just like, man, that's weird. I didn't really understand it at the time, and then it immediately transitions to the toaster dangling over a tub of water, like almost like falling. And again, this is to show that they're deathly afraid of water. What did you think of this whole sequence?
I mean, I appreciate the creativity for sure. Very well animated, like everything else is on here. And there's definitely one of those scenes that probably like pushes the envelope a little bit, because obviously, like I think most people would, if you see a tub and there's a toaster dangling over, you think about somebody trying to kill themselves. Like
What?
Isn't that like no? That's a thing.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a thing. It was just again
a plugged-in toaster. You put it in.
I never thought of, like never, like not even until now.
Well, I mean, that is, I don't know if that actually works, but that's like a trope, right? That
Stay
like you can kill
tuned
yourself.
for next week, where we try to find out if the old toaster in the tub suicide trick works or not.
Yeah, Reptilian Media, how it works episode next week.
Right. So,
but anyways, by the way, Steve, I did, Detroit Retro Gamer had commented that this is such a terrifying movie, which, by the way, the people I text, they were traumatized by several scenes. Again, for those that are just joining, I have never seen it. I had never seen it before today, but I asked Detroit Retro Gamer like what they thought was the most terrifying scene. So they wrote, to be honest, I can't remember anything specific beyond the feeling of suspended anxiety. Perhaps the final car crush junkyard scene.
Oh, yeah.
Is that even a thing? LOL, gotta revisit. Yes, it is. And I'll repost again, Detroit Gamer, in the chat, a link where you can watch the film in pretty good quality right here on YouTube, free of charge.
Yeah. So this is an awesome transition, though, where they go from the nightmare to toaster waking up, and there's a horrible storm outside, and it ends up blowing Blanky away into the night. And then while they're busy searching for Blanket, they just sort of keep calling his name over and over again. And the lamp realizes that he needs to charge the battery. And I guess the idea here is that, his discussion with the toaster sort of, made him, realize that he too needs to take one for the team. And so at first he's trying to use his bulb to help search for Blanket, and then he's running out of juice as well. He's trying to charge himself in the battery. So then he gets the idea. He points himself basically to the sky and ends up getting struck by lightning, and it charges the car battery. And this is 100% accurate science. I know you're going to say it's not. But no, it's cartoon science.
I wager science says it's not.
No, but with my feelings, it means that it is. Okay. So he gets struck by lightning, and I mean, again, that's a very memorable scene to me. I remember when that happened. I was like, is the lamp gonna be okay? But luckily, we transitioned to daytime. They're still searching for Blanky. Lamp is okay, but now he's all busted up, and his bulb is busted, and but he's good. And they end up finding the Blanket in a tree. Kirby uses his cord as basically a lasso, and then he sucks up the cord so he can get up there and get him. And they all praise him, but Kirby says he just did it so they could be on their way. And duh. Yeah, I'm no psychiatrist, but he's Kirby the vacuum is just one of those guys that I guess keeps all of his feelings on the inside and never show a real cold cat, if you will.
Every one of these appliances needs therapy, even the ones that appear happy.
Well, listen. That's the thing that I feel is great about this movie, is that it really, these appliances have a lot of depth, especially compared to kids movies nowadays, where everything is just sort of wacky and over the top. And you never get any surreal nightmare fuel anymore like you did back in the 80s and 90s.
I'm sure there's some.
I've been watching them, man.
There.
Believe me. And I'm not saying everything sucks. It's just I watched...
You're just an old man, bro. You just don't get it, dude.
No, I'm going to tell you. I watched The Bad Guys, which was a movie that came out last year. It's a CGI. I think... it's not a Disney. It's something else.
DreamWorks, maybe.
Yeah, one of those, and
they do a lot of.
Yeah, it's fine, and and it just doesn't. The character development and depth of that movie just doesn't compare to The Brave Little Toaster.
But so one thing I saw in the comments of the YouTube link for The Little Toaster was that a lot of people were saying oh, they don't make movies like this anymore with this depth and blah, 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 kids movies.
Bubba?
Motherfucker, they weren't making movies like this back then either. This is an anomaly, even for that time.
That's a good point. I feel, and I'm sure a lot of people do feel, that this movie is definitely sort of like lightning in a bottle. You could say that a lot of the Pixar movies, I guess John Lasseter getting ousted, have a lot of the emotional depth that the Brave Little Toaster does, Toy Story included.
Yeah, but I would argue, Steve, that and again, as you know, I'm no fan of children.
You're a cat guy. You're a cat guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a vasectomy man. I have a vasectomy. No kids, not gonna have them. I'm the one Puerto Rican in Florida that's not gonna have a child. But anyways, I can say that because I'm Puerto Rican. Everybody, it's fine. But by the way, Retro Gamer had written in response, revisit it, because I had told him, he or her, you can revisit your trauma at that link in reference to the movie, and you wrote, revisiting trauma, a favorite pastime. Thanks, Disney. Hey, thanks being an adult.
And don't forget to thanks Obscurity Now.
Yeah.
We're here to make you relive all your childhood trauma.
Absolutely, absolutely. We want no one to be happier than us. That's what's important as an adult, to push everybody down.
Right.
But I do think that movies like this, kids movies like this, where there's, these characters that have these, especially so many characters who have complex issues and a lot of their own trauma and things that they're dealing that should be the anomaly. I don't think like most kids movies should be so traumatic because everyone's like, this movie traumatized me. It made me cry.
Right. Well, a lot of people say that about like Watership Down. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, and that is way less joyless than this. I mean, I feel like maybe more movies in general, animated or otherwise, they should all have character depth and arcs, and they don't all have to
Right.
have like surreal dream sequences that reveal
Right.
the character's inner turmoil. But
Sure.
yeah, just a little more.
I'm not saying, and I'm not saying, Steve, don't have arcs, good story
Right.
arcs or character arcs,
Right.
or have characters that are like, uh, that have depth in these kids'
Hmm.
movies. I'm saying they shouldn't all be so traumatic
Sure.
as this movie apparently is for. Because, dude, everybody I've talked to about this has said at least one or two scenes. Oh, that traumatized me. That traumatized me.
Right. Well.
Imagine if every kids movie or most kids movies were traumatic to children.
Right. Well, I mean, in corporate Hollywood 2022, yeah, they don't want to even have the even idea that anything is anywhere near traumatizing. It's just, we're just going to have laughs and sell as many toys as possible. So, yeah, you're
But I
right.
would
This
argue,
is,
Steve, the real world is traumatizing enough right now
it's
where
true. I mean, but hey, even in the 80s, there was the nuclear threat and whatnot. But no, there's nothing wrong with pure escapist entertainment, where there's no
yeah.
trauma, like
But
more or less.
ultimately, for me, I don't care. Traumatize the kids, don't traumatize them. I don't care. Just keep them out of my way.
Right, right. So,
I'm a vasectomy man.
yeah. So, Jesus, that's gonna be a T-shirt. So yeah, Kirby. They're all praising Kirby, and Kirby fires back and rags on them all, and tells them to leave him alone. And then at this point, they're next to this. They come upon this waterfall, and yeah, Kirby himself freaks out. I guess the idea is that he's never seen a waterfall before, and he ends up sucking his own cord. Oh God, that sounds terrible. But I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't get the idea that it was suicide. Maybe more of an accident because he was freaking out. I mean, if it was suicide, wow, that's really messed up. But hey, this movie
So I think it's
traumatized a
definitely on purpose.
generation.
I think it is on purpose because like I went back and I rewatched it
Hmm.
just to like see like make sure I wasn't like imagining, but he like pauses and then goes like and like purposely bites his like
Wow,
cord.
wow. I mean,
So
this is intense stuff
yeah.
here.
Now you could argue, like you said, you could argue it either way. Maybe it's not him trying to kill himself.
Hmm.
I think I suspect that they left it somewhat ambiguous, like on purpose, where it's kind
Sure.
of like, well, we can't just be like, yeah, this vacuum's trying to kill himself. But
Right, right.
for those that can see what we're trying to say, they'll see that, and for those that don't, that's fine too, because you can still see that. The point is, he's stressed out about the waterfall.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So they revive him, and and this is all like good because they sort of brought Kirby down to his low point because he's about to get his chance to sacrifice himself for the crew. Like they revive him, and they all then they're like, how are we gonna oh, well, all right, I shouldn't skip over this. Basically, they revive him, and they're like, "Yay, we were really worried about you." And he's all like, "Shove off! Like, I don't care. You guys suck."
Basically, he's
And
mad that they didn't let him kill himself,
basically,
and kind of
jeez,
embarrassed about it, which
yes,
that's the thing that happens.
for sure. And then he's like, "Well, how are we going to get across this waterfall?" And so, cut to they have all tied their cords together. He swings like the little toasters on the very end. They swing themselves over. The brave little toaster makes it, but then he himself gets freaked out by the waterfall, and all of the appliances except Kirby, they all fall into the water. And so then there's a great sort of I don't know moment where you're not exactly sure what's going to happen. And I guess the idea is that Kirby is contemplating like what he's going to do, and then zoom, he shoots himself over the edge. He inflates his bag and floats in the rapids, and basically he catches everybody. They all sort of end up on his back and use him as a makeshift boat, which you really need to suspend your disbelief here because, of course, the water would have killed them all.
I mean, I feel like that's like one of the least egregious logic holes
I
here,
mean, I
but
was just saying
I,
that for your benefit, buddy.
it's okay. So I did want to point out another comment here from Detroit Retro Gamer. They said that they just Googled Brave Little Toaster Marxist, and like I guess it's probably got some Marxist slash communist undertones. A bunch of emojis followed by sacrifice and serve the master, which I said earlier, like that's so weird that they use master as how they refer to the kid that's going to college. And supposedly some characters quote Karl Marx. And I was wondering that too, if there was like some like, not to get political, we're not going to get into it, but like if there was like some kind of socialist message that they were trying to send here. But also Seabass said that didn't catch that moment, I think, about the Kirby killing himself possibly. But he mentioned that he ended up reading the book. And earlier we were like, who even read the novella?
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
we've got one here.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, we might have to do an interview with you, Seabass. That's awesome. So yeah, they get back on dry land, and of course, like Kirby, he downplays his sacrifice. He just says that I just slipped and fell in, and they all like, oh, you big softy, blah blah blah. They arrive on dry land, and Toaster feels bad for letting everyone down. Again, there's a cool moment here where he sees his reflection in the water, and he just bats it away because he's so filled with angst, and he's just disappointed in himself for letting everyone fall in the water. So they lost their battery, so now the crew has to pull Kirby. So again, this is, and again, we've already talked about it too much. It's almost evidence that Kirby was the only one who needed the battery. But then why was the lamp plugging himself in? Whatever. So now the little appliances are pulling Kirby. He hits a rock and falls into quicksand. And this is one of those things where, remember in the 80s when everyone got stuck in quicksand at one point? And just as a kid,
what happened to quicksand? Did we just get rid of all the quicksand on Earth? Like no one ever has that issue in movies and cartoons.
I lived and worked in Dubai for a year, and it's filled with sand, and I never got anywhere near any quicksand.
Yeah. Funny how that works, right?
What a weird trope, and no one ever even uses it anymore. Probably for the best. They all have their cords attached to him, so when he falls in, all the other appliances fall in. The last one left is the radio, and basically everything that comes out of the radio is pretty hilarious. He's like playing a song, and it's like this guy saying, "Oh, honey, I'm coming for ya," or something, and he sings all the way down. The only thing left is his antenna. And then a man grabs it, and I like how they at least, it's not complete coincidence. He's just like, oh, I thought I heard a radio. And then he realizes that all the other appliances are attached to him. Cut to, the man gets into his monster truck, which I always thought that truck was the best when I was like an 8-year-old.
That truck today would be covered because it's like a super raised, like a mini Bigfoot truck. If you live in Florida like I do, you've seen them. People raise their trucks. It would be covered, littered in misunderstood Punisher stickers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Confederate flag.
Well, that too. I mean, you'd have a certain political figures getting peed on by Calvin and Hobbes. You'd have a Punisher sticker.
Thank you for saying misunderstood Punisher stickers, because I'm a huge Punisher fan, and and those guys don't read comics. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, but Punisher doesn't like cops, guys. He doesn't like cops.
But it's funny because the guy driving the truck is just like a typical Star Wars nerd, like just this fat sort of doughy guy who's just always talking to his dog. And he is a hardware store owner. He brings the toaster crew in and puts them on his workbench. Then he goes up, and there is a dude there asking for blender parts. But before the guy comes back, there's like a work lamp who once again is voiced by Phil Hartman doing his best Peter Lorre impression. He's the guy from Casablanca. If you've never seen Casablanca, you should check it out. And they're like, the hardware store owner is a really swell guy. And he's just like, oh yeah, he's real nice. Like very sarcastically. I love the amount. I can't believe you don't love the amount of sarcasm that's in this cartoon. It's like you never got that back in the 80s.
Okay, I mean, sure. I,
See, you're being
I,
sarcastic right now, you son of a bitch.
I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to.
All right, you're right.
I feel like I would have to like get into my verdict. So
Sure.
you know, I get it. I get what you're saying.
But all right, so yeah, once again, the customer asks for a blender motor, and so the clerk or hardware store clerk, whatever you want to call him, he comes back, and then we're treated to what could be perceived as a very nightmare, once again, another nightmare fuel moment where the hardware store clerk takes apart a sentient blender and removes his motor. And
Murders him, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and this scene.
Now I love the way this scene is shot because like they make it look like so when he goes to use the screw, you see like a shadow of him going like this, and it looks like he's stabbing him, but really he's just bringing down the screwdriver. So I thought this is honestly maybe it's a bit morbid, but I thought it was like it's one of my favorite scenes in this.
Great.
Where like
it's
like they did a great job of making it seem like he's killing him for the adults while also not make it look like he's killing him for the kids, right?
Right.
While still getting across like, hey, this thing that was alive now isn't. And when he's done taking the motor out, there's another shot, a shadow shot where you see a shadow of something dripping, which obviously it's oil, right? You would assume, but it also looks like blood is dripping, kind of a thing. So really, really cool, really creative way to fuck the kids' minds.
Good thing you said minds.
Yeah. I was like, ooh, gonna get taken out of context.
So of course all right. So the clerk leaves. The toaster crew is stunned, and then the lamp asks the work lamp, how can they escape? And the lamp and all the other appliances laugh. And then we begin song number 2 here, known as "It's a B Movie." And all these songs are by Van Dyke Parks, which is a really weird name. But I love this song. I always thought it had an awesome sort of slap bass line in it. And I know you already said you liked it. Do you have anything else to unpack?
Whoa. Liked it I definitely liked it the most. Maybe disliked it the least. I appreciate the subject matter and that it was definitely unexpected. Still didn't like that it was just like some song in this that I felt was like keeping the plot from moving forward, and I still like felt like it was a bit of filler, but not a fun song otherwise. Though. Fun song.
I just like it. I feel like it. It's just saying that the outside world is a horrible place, or especially the place where they all ended up. And I like where the mishmash shows up and it sounds like Joan Rivers. I mean, I just thought that.
Yeah, I thought it was Joan Rivers. Yeah. It was a very good impression.
So the song ends, and then we hear that same customer who's like, "Well, I also need to get some radio tubes," and then the radio then pleads to be hidden by the toaster crew, and this scene is almost echoed verbatim in Toy Story, where they sort of break their rules of, revealing themselves to humans. And they basically, the brave little toaster gets on top of the vacuum, then the blanket gets on him, and the lamp shines on him. And they use their voices basically to scare the hardware store owner into knocking himself out. He sees his reflection in the toaster, he screams, and then...
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me.
I mean, what didn't make sense about it?
Like, he's scared of his own reflection?
Oh, I mean, there's not supposed to be anybody moving or making noise in his hardware.
Yeah, but like if you see, he works in a hardware store. He's never seen his reflection on an appliance, a chrome appliance.
The thing's moving, and they're making noises with their voices that aren't supposed to be there.
I guess. I guess maybe I'm just...
like, what if you heard your precious CDI start talking? How would that affect you? Probably and fuck it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'd probably be very aroused. You're like, finally, I know what this expansion port is for.
Oh, CDI! Finally, we could be together. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, so God, Larry, let's move here.
Yeah, let's move
Okay,
on.
so basically, they use this time to escape. They were originally put in a baby carriage, so now that is their transport. For some reason, they felt a need to include a scene of the the hardware store owner's dog getting into the Bigfoot and driving away. So apparently, in this world, dogs have the ability to drive trucks. I don't know why that cracks me up, but it
Right?
does. Okay, so now they've reached the city. They're at the precipice, looking upon these quote unquote city of lights. They're in their baby carriage. They get there. They're looking at all the huge buildings, and they're like, "How are we gonna find the master?" Um, so now we see we're in the master's apartment. We see that he's grown and he's packing for college. And he says he's going out to the cabin to pick up the old
Packing
lamp and
what?
the radio. Huh?
Like packing things. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
I thought you meant like he's packing
I mean, in
downstairs.
that
Or
city, I mean, he probably should. I mean, he's almost killed by a magnet later on. Um,
okay, I was talking about his genitals, Steve, as he's packing.
this is the
Going
most
back to the blanket talk and
this is the most erotic episode we've ever done. Um,
hey, you started talking about orgies right from the bat, so don't.
sure, I'm the
It takes two to tango, and I guess more for an orgy. I don't know.
later we're gonna see
Should we just delete this
we're
episode?
gonna see you with pictures of you and your CDI on Twitter. So he says, very ironically, he's going out to the cabin to get the other appliances. His attractive girlfriend comes and picks him up, and they go out to the cabin. So back with the crew, they use they use a phone book in a phone, a payphone. Whoa, dated.
Yeah.
And they find the master's address. Then they ask a traffic signal where to go. And I thought the bit with the traffic signal was kind of cute. Whatever. They knock on the door, and the radio uses the secret appliance knock to let them know that their appliances, that the appliances inside should let them in. And that's what happens. And I forgot to mention, back when the master said he was going to the cabin, the other appliances heard him, and they're like, "Hey, did you hear that? We're about to be replaced by old junk." So they show up at the door, and the appliances are like, "Hey, look, it's them, the aforementioned old appliances." It's like, let's let them in and give them the business. And so they do, and the radio is telling them this what this very bloated, sort of over the top version of their
Hmm.
journey, and like the lamp is more impressed than anyone else, and
Right.
so then you start to see like that the other appliances are very the new ones that are in the apartment are very disingenuous. A sewing machine starts talking trash about the blanket, and then when he comes by just to say hello, they say hello back. You know, typical city folk stuff. Yeah, very Hollywood, if you will. Um,
Indeed.
the crew sees a grown picture of the master, and they all go, "Wow, look at he has grown." And then they see the TV, who used to be at the cabin. That I guess they brought him with them when they moved, which makes sense back then because TVs used to last a long time, and they were so expensive that you used them until they died, basically. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, totally true. Yeah, not much else to add,
Right.
Steve.
I'm sorry. So yeah, so they basically talk, and right as the wait no that scene oh yeah right as the TV is telling them that the master left to go get him, that one of the other appliances, the sneaky purple lamp, he changes the channel so they can't tell him. And cut to, the master arrives at the cabin, and he's surprised by the mess. And now we go back to the apartment, and we are treated to song number 3, Cutting Edge, mostly performed by the new appliances, which are all new appliances in
Yeah, this was supposed to be
1987,
like, yeah,
and they're all dated now,
hilariously not cutting edge anymore.
which is
Yeah, yeah.
hilarious. And basically, it's their song to brag to the Toaster crew about how high tech and cool they are and how obsolete they are. What did you think about this song?
Didn't like it. That was lame. I thought even the attempts at like making some of the vocals sound like digital or electronic was like pretty shitty, even for the time. I just was not into it. By the way, something I didn't mention, did you know that there actually was a Kirby vacuum cleaner, like a company called
Yes,
Kirby that made,
I
yeah.
knew that.
And I thought, and I remember that there was one, and I assumed because TDK, the electronics company, sponsored or helped pay for like some of this movie, and
Hmm.
there's some TDK product placement here and there in the movie. I thought like maybe they were the ones that made it, but they did not.
Hmm.
However, it seems like they might have made some components used in Kirby
Oh,
vacuum cleaners.
interesting. Yeah,
So
yeah, that's cool. So, all right, I love the song. Again, it's got another great bass line. And this is, as I've said many times before on this podcast, I'm a huge fan of 80s new wave, especially early synthesizers and electronic music. So this one was right up my alley. I loved it.
I knew you'd like
I
it.
loved it then, and I still like it now. Anyway, moving on, we're back with the master in the cabin. He's looking for the appliances, and as he calls out their names, he's like, "Where's the blanket? Where's the radio? Where's the lamp?" And as he says
Yeah,
that,
funny if he wanted that blanket.
wow, you just will
Wonder
not
why?
let this go, will you?
What? What? Just say. Just say.
As he says their names, they are kicked out of the apartment into a dump truck, and until basically they're all kicked out. The master then comes by and fixes the air conditioner, and he smiles and like tears up a bit. And I think that's like a good callback. And again, it really shows that the master, he cares. He's gonna come. He's gonna fix everything and make it all better. And so yeah, now the toaster crew, they're feeling really down. They're like, oh, they feel like basically they're not needed. They feel obsolete, and they are taken and dumped into this junkyard. We see this red magnet. He's going around. He's scooping up cars, dropping them on a conveyor belt, and then they are dropped into a smasher. I don't know the proper term, but that's what I'm calling it.
Like the thing that crushes
Yeah, crusher.
metal things like down into like compacts. I think it's called a compactor.
There you go. That's what it is. Now we are back with the master, and he's at his apartment. He's, he just can't believe that his old junk is gone, and his mom is telling him to take stuff around here, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that to you, Mom. If only there was like a discount store nearby." And that's when the TV jumps into action, and it's weird how sort of the TV works. He works kind of the same way the radio does, as you can actually see a guy on the TV and he's saying what the TV is saying, the sentient TV is saying. And so he starts basically creating this commercial out of nowhere for the junkyard, which is called Ernie's Disposal. He saw the name of the disposal place on the dump truck that they were thrown into. Yeah, and he's basically trying to convince the master to go there. And now we're back with the junkyard, and we are treated to song number 4, Worthless, which is basically these sentient cars singing about their life as they are then crushed to death into cubes. What do you think of this one, Yahel?
So before I get into that, Seabass wrote that the TV goes ham with trying to advertise cheap deals of anything to save the other appliances.
Yeah, well said.
Yes. He also said then the compactor single goes on, which was a jam, which is what you're talking about, I think. I kind of tuned out at this point for this song. Like, Steve, I was so disappointed there was another song at this point. So yeah, I wanted everybody to get crushed and killed.
This song is so good, but also just very, it's like every car has their own sort of personality, and you get to meet them right before they die. And what is going on here with the symbolism of the junkyard? Is it like is this modern society saying that if you're not well and able to do your job, that you're just tossed to the side? What do you think about that?
Right. Yeah, let's get rid of the anybody who can't do anything for me. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, I definitely do think that that's what they were trying to say. And, you know, I think it's a good lesson to try to teach to kids, right? Because they're trying to like show like the horrors of treating something or someone like that, right?
Sure.
As this, the horrors of like treating people as though they're disposable
Mhm.
because of whatever reason. I think it's a great lesson, but they were like almost so. As an adult, it doesn't seem subtle, right? Like we get it, but I
Mhm.
think a kid wouldn't necessarily get that.
Right.
So I feel like the execution could have been like better geared for kids to get that. So that's my only complaint about it, really.
All right. That's I'll take that. Fair point. So the song ends, and the finally the TV convinces the master to go to the junkyard. Eventually, the crew gets sucked up by the magnet. The blanket drops his picture of the master, and they see him as they're being sucked away by the magnet. And then they all sort of spring to life just as they are being dropped on the conveyor belt. The master finds his picture, and the crew jumps off the conveyor belt. Man, this magnet, he just does not give up. He is tenacious. The master is coming near by them, and they freeze. And then the magnet gets them again. The crew then separates, which confuses the magnet. The master almost finds the crew once again, and they think that he's coming back, but surprise, surprise, it's that creepy old magnet, and he puts them back on the conveyor belt. Then the master finally sees them on the conveyor belt. First the blanket, then the radio, then the lamp, and then the magnet comes after him. I mean, I guess the idea is that the magnet is going after the appliances which are on him, and he ends up sucking the master and the appliances up, and he gets
Right.
dropped on the conveyor belt. Which I mean, yeah, it's the suspense here is just crazy. He's on the conveyor belt heading towards the compactor. He's about to get smashed, and in the ultimate self-sacrifice, the toaster climbs a huge tower of cars and jumps into the gears of the smasher, stopping it right before it smashes the master's hand. What did you think about that sequence?
A lot to unpack here, but going back to what Detroit Retro Gamer said earlier, didn't Marx have like a something that he wrote about like stopping the gears, throwing yourself into the gears of like the machine, the capitalist machine, or something like that? So I do wonder actually if that was supposed to be some kind of
Yeah, a
metaphor for
metaphor.
that.
Yeah, I mean, since you've put that idea in my mind, yeah, I'm definitely starting to see
Well,
it.
credit goes to Detroit Retro
Yeah,
Gamer.
yeah, that's what I'm. You Detroit retro gamer. You're Obscurian of the week. That's the thing we need to start.
Yeah.
um,
But yeah, honestly, like this is like a really, I guess fun isn't the right word, but it's really well done
mhm.
little sequence. By the way, I do want to point out Seabass here had written that his favorite song was Cutting Edge.
Ah,
Um,
nice.
but Worthless was the second
Hmm.
best song, and how like it's ironic that like all those appliances have now been replaced in the Cutting Edge song. But yeah, it's a fun sequence. However, Steven, I did have one problem with it
Okay.
because at this point we had already seen the lamp when the lamp gets electrocuted by lightning.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, maybe he's gonna die. No, we get a fake out there. Then the vacuum tries to kill himself. Nope, he's fine too. So at this point, I was like, well, they're certainly not gonna actually kill the brave little toaster. If they, so like I think like that stuff happening earlier lost its punch. They should have let like the lamp actually die or somebody die to make you think, oh, maybe the little toaster is gonna be dead.
Yeah.
But
All right.
it's still a good scene. It's still a good scene. And as a kid, I'm sure if I was a dumb little fucking 6-year-old like you were, Steve, I would have, been like, oh my gosh.
Like, but I killing off anyone, I think, goes against like the theme because
Well, they killed the flower. They killed all those other cars.
those, yeah, but those guys were worthless. No, I mean,
Oh, okay.
but for our main protagonists, like the main theme here is, you have to again take one for the team, self-sacrifice for the group, which all varies.
But nobody really commits a sacrifice in the end
But
in the
they
group.
did. Like Kirby.
They're all fine at the end.
But I mean, you can sacrifice without killing yourself. You hell, you know. We
You,
sacrifice 2 hours of our Sunday to do this podcast.
This does feel like a sacrifice. This is my cross.
You hear that? Hear that, audience? That's what Yahel thinks about you.
But yeah, I mean, and it is a kids movie or whatever. Again, I'm just coming at it from an adult point of view. Either way, though, to what you were saying, they do a great job of building suspense throughout the scene, and it is like satisfying to see like the toaster like make that like sacrifice,
right.
Even if you know he's gonna be fine. Like I said, I just feel like it lost a little bit of its punch.
I feel like
okay, are you happy?
I feel like you're about to start singing Creed. My sacrifice. All right. Okay, we're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for staying with us. Okay, so
yes, thank you.
Cut to, we are once again in the master's apartment. And again, he comes and he fixes the toaster. His girlfriend, Chris, is like, why don't you just get a new...
With a hammer by just banging the
master
dents out of
makes
it.
everything better. See, the thing is like, I mean, again, I've dabbled in Marxism, or at least his philosophy, and it's like, is there a philosophy where he says that someone's going to come along and fix everything and make it better? Like the master is going to come and fix everything? That doesn't sound like something that they would be for. But anyway.
I don't know. But I'm sure the master here is used to banging these appliances.
More like
so
masturbator. I mean, someone has to make that joke. I mean, I figured you would.
See, you're the one that's saying the words. You see, as a YouTube veteran, I don't say the word. I just make the implications. I'm like Dennis from It's Always Sunny.
It's the implication. All right. Good reference. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, he fixes the toaster. Everything's fine.
Bangs it right with the hammer, with his hammer.
Yeah, he bangs it real good. And he doesn't throw them. He places all the appliances in the back of his car. He and his girlfriend drive out to the sunset. And Kirby calls them all a bunch of junk. They all have a good laugh. The end.
Yeah, what a ride. What a thrill
this
ride.
Podcast certainly has been. All right, let's run the bumper and we'll deliver our verdict.
Remember, rated. That's the question.
So,
Steve, I think we should change it up. I think you should do your verdict first.
I've got no problem. Okay, do you want to deliver the line to me?
I will try my best. I have been drinking some platinum Bud Light seltzers, so we'll see. Steven, what do you think about the little toaster? Should it be banished to the bottomless pit of obscurity, never to be seen or heard from again? Or should it be remembered for all future generations?
Oh, 100% remembered. I mean...
Detroit Gamer wrote, to be honest, leave this movie in obscurity. I'm surprised about that.
What?
Too much trauma.
Too much for you there, Detroit? Come on. You're from Detroit. Isn't that place... Didn't it used to be a hellscape? I mean...
Man, therapy's expensive, man.
Yeah, it's true. Well, hey...
This movie may have led some to therapy.
Don't go to therapy. Instead, just drink a 6-pack and listen or watch Obscurity Now. We'll make everything. We'll make everything better, just like the master. But all right. So I think this movie should be remembered. The songs are great. The animation is great. The writing, the themes are carried out to their like fullest potential. I mean, I actually even tried to think of something like negative to say about the movie, and like I really couldn't find it. Like, the plot is pretty simple. It flies by, as you said. I mean, the story it doesn't have a huge complex plot or story. It just it shows up. The amount of character depth is huge compared to other like kids movies at the time, and even especially now. And I mean, I think if you have kids, or even if you don't, I feel you should definitely show them this movie, or watch this at least once.
Yeah, like if you don't like your kids in particular and you want to traumatize them.
I look forward to when Blade is old enough, at least 6, to show it to him and see what he thinks about it. So yes, I definitely feel the Brave Little Toaster should be remembered for all of human history. What do you think there, Brave Little Yahel?
Wow. Well, Stephen, I will say I didn't particularly enjoy this movie, as I think has been pretty obvious. I think it's too long. I think it would be better as an hour long. Cut out the songs, cut out a couple of the filler scenes. However, the animation is great. Great cast. Some interesting life lessons, I guess you could say. Maybe not executed. I think maybe it should have been a little bit more obvious, but it's 87. They probably have to be extra subtle. But I'm actually going to surprise you, I think, and say remember it.
Wow.
Because I think a child, if you watch it as a child, I think you'll get something from it, probably trauma, but maybe you'll glean a lesson or two about how to treat people. So overall, I will say at least it has substance, which a lot of the cartoons from the 80s that we've watched, like the Alvin and the Chipmunks thing, like really doesn't. Right. And at least this wasn't racist, like the Alvin and the Chipmunks cartoon.
It was so xenophobic.
If anything, actually, this was pretty progressive. You know, you've got your pansexual blanket that we talked about. Yes. And the master's girlfriend is of color, actually. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to say remember it.
All right, here it comes.
In accordance to Obscurity Now, the most important streaming YouTube podcast in all of the internet, you shall be remembered. Yes. Good show. Good show.
So, Steve, before you talk, Seabass said that I fucking love this movie. You got to be on something if you thought this movie sucked. Whatever you're on, I want 2 of it. Well, the only thing I've had tonight are 2 Bud Light Platinum Seltzers.
Very manly Platinum Seltzers, yeah.
Hey, they're 8%. But Seabass, like I said earlier, and I don't know if you were around for it, but like I had never watched it before today, so I don't have childhood nostalgia for it. So you got to like understand I'm coming at it from a 41-year-old's.
Well, I mean, in the end, you still liked it. So if you're going to this con where Yahel is, you don't have to beat him up. You don't have to. I'm saying you don't have to beat him up.
You're giving me a reprieve.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. One last announcement.
Yeah, sorry we ran long, guys.
Sorry. No, you're welcome is what you mean to say. Once again, I've got physical copies of my comic book, Escape to Earth, which will be available to purchase online at some point soon. Just make sure you stay tuned to this channel and or Twitter and all that other great stuff. And follow us on TikTok, and we will see you next.
Follow us on TikTok at Reptilian Media, for God's sakes. Yeah. For whatever reason, the podcast is like getting bigger there. By the Detroit Retro Gamer said, thanks to y'all, I'll remember a nightmare.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you follow us on TikTok, you'll get to see our hilarious commentary with actual like clips from the Brave Little Toaster and or whatever else we're talking about at the time.
Yes, Steve has been doing an awesome job of putting together clips, thanks, and he throws in like actual obviously us talking, but then he can actually show footage of whatever, piece of media we were talking about.
Screw you, YouTube. By the way, YouTube, can I have some money, please? All right.
Yeah. We're big with the Zillennials now.
I don't know what we are anymore. All right. So once again, we'll see you next Sunday, where we will be talking about the sensational She-Hulk #1, the comic book. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.